So, you ever walk into your local library and wonder how it seems to have access to, well, just about everything? Turns out it's got a secret superpower. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how it all works.
All right, let's just start with a really basic question. Think about it for a second. Millions, and I mean millions, of books, articles, and journals get published every single year. So is it even possible for one library, even a massive one, to actually own all of it?
The answer? It's a big, fat impossible. Not a chance. There's just no way a single building could hold all of that knowledge, and, that simple fact created a massive, massive problem for libraries everywhere.
And we're not talking about a small hiccup here. This was like a perfect storm. The old idea of a library, just a quiet building full of its own books, that model was starting to crack. It was breaking down under some serious, serious pressure.
A huge piece of that storm? Money. I mean, the cost of knowledge itself was just exploding. You can see it right here. One year, book prices shoot up 6%. The very next year, journals and magazines do the same. And this wasn't just a blip. It was this constant, never-ending price hike that was absolutely crushing library budgets.
So, libraries were getting hit by this kind of three-pronged attack. First, you have the information explosion, just way more stuff being published in all sorts of new formats. Second, those skyrocketing prices we just talked about. And third, well, we changed. The users. We all became more tech-savvy, we needed super specific info for our work, and we wanted it instantly. Right now. It was, no exaggeration, a full-blown crisis.
Okay, so how in the world do you solve a problem that seems impossible? Well, it turns out the solution was actually pretty simple, almost elegant. The idea was, if no single library can have it all, then what if they all just teamed up and agreed to share? And that simple idea became this formal concept called resource sharing. But look, this is way more than just lending books back and forth. It's about sharing everything. We're talking documents, yeah, but also the skills of the staff, even the buildings and the tech, all for the good of the group. It's basically the ultimate form of teamwork.
And the goals here were huge. I mean, the whole point was to maximize what's out there for everyone, which makes access to information way more democratic, right? It saves a ton of money, saves physical space, and this is a big one. It cuts down on waste. Think about it. Why should 10 libraries in the same city all buy a copy of the same super expensive, super niche journal that only gets read once a year? It just makes sense to coordinate.
Now, to be fair, this idea of sharing wasn't brand new. But for the longest time, it was slow. It was clunky. You had to mail things. But then, technology showed up. And that was the real game changer. It took this nice little idea and supercharged it, turning it into the powerful, global system we have today.
You can really see the difference here. The old way, what they called library cooperation, was all about physically moving stuff around. Library A puts its one copy of a book in the mail to send to Library B. Super slow and totally limited by how far you could ship something. But the new way, resource sharing, is a completely different beast. It's all about technology. It's not about lending a physical thing, it's about sending the information. You can copy a digital file 1,000,000 times and zap it across the planet in a split second. I mean, the difference is just night and day.
And you can actually trace this whole story over time. It started out pretty simple, with the first standardized rules for borrowing way back in 1917. Then, in the 60s, you get the first real networks popping up. And as the tech got better and better, you started seeing these huge, ambitious national projects, like Inflibnet in India, and these powerful buying groups in the 2000s. Every step was just building on what came before.
And if you need one single number to really grasp why this whole digital thing was so important, check this out. By the year 2002, a mind-blowing 92% of all new information was already being stored on hard disks. Think about that. The age of paper was basically over. At that point, these sharing networks weren't just a nice-to-have. Nope, they were an absolute critical necessity.
So this new digital world set the stage for the modern, the supercharged version of all this, the library consortium. If resource sharing is teamwork, this is like the all-star team.
So what the heck is a consortium? The easiest way to think about it is like a giant buying club, like a Costco for libraries. Instead of every little library going toe-to-toe with some giant multinational publisher all by itself, they team up. They put all their money together to get some serious bargaining power and land huge discounts on things like e-journals and databases. And how it works is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly effective.
First, a bunch of libraries with similar needs get together. They pool their cash. Then, a central agency acts on their behalf. They go to the publisher and say, hey, we've got 100 libraries here who want to buy access. Give us your absolute best deal. And boom, the result is that every single member library gets access to way more stuff than they could ever afford on their own.
The benefits here are just off the charts. It goes way beyond just saving a few bucks. We're talking about, and I'm quoting here, wider access, higher quality content, economics of scale, lower costs, and increased electronic access. It really is a win for everybody.
Okay, so this has all been a pretty big picture look at networks and consortia. But what does any of this actually mean for you? You know, the next time you walk into your local branch or just go to their website, why should you care?
Honestly, it means everything. This invisible network is the secret superpower we talked about at the beginning. It's the magic that lets you request some super rare academic paper, or get into a specialized database for your research, or read a journal from a university on the other side of the planet, all from your hometown library. It turns your library from a building with books into a portal to a whole universe of information.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on. If your library isn't really just the books on its shelves anymore, if it's actually a doorway to this massive global digital brain, then what even is a library in the 21st century?